Well, you all know Supreme Court confirmation hearings have produced some of the most dramatic moments in Senate history and could contain some lessons for Judge Kavanaugh. Joining us now from New Orleans to discuss the theater of the confirmation process, best-selling author, Fox News contributor Raymond Arroyo. Now, Raymond, I know you spent the day watching old SCOTUS confirmation hearings of the past, so which do you think Kavanaugh could most benefit from?
I did indeed, Laura, and I pulled some because as I looked at this nominee, I mean, this is a man, as you've been mentioning, 13 years on the federal bench. But what many people forget, he was part of the Whitewater investigation. He wrote the Starr report, which had the articles of impeachment, or at least suggested impeachment, of President Clinton. He then worked with the Bush administration. I expect, as I watched these hearings, it put me in mind of Ted Kennedy, who in 1987 dredged up Robert Bork's past history, his political history, working for Richard Nixon. Here's what he said.
The man who fired Archibald Cox does not deserve to sit on the Supreme Court of the United States. Robert Bork's America is a land in which women would be forced into back alley abortions, blacks would sit at segregated lunch counters, rogue police could break down citizens' doors in midnight raids, and school children could not be taught about evolution. Writers and artists would be censured at the whim of government.
Laura, I think we're going to hear that type of language, that dystopian nightmare will be painted again. The back alley abortions, all that dark vision, they're going to try to paint Kavanaugh with that same brush. Now, it worked in the case of Judge Bork because he was very defensive. I mean, we can't play all of the hearing, but he was very defensive and sharp and didn't quite know how to bite back and clear his name. That's something Kavanaugh should be wary of.
I was working at the White House when that went down, and I love Judge Bork, of course, but he didn't. The charm factor wasn't on display during those hearings, and he kicked puppies too. I'm surprised Tim Kennedy didn't say that. Elena Kagan, by the way, let's remember Kagan, currently Associate Justice on the court. She had a very interesting way of dealing with tough questions. Watch this exchange from 2010.
Christmas Day bomber, where are you at on Christmas Day?
I should ask exactly what you mean by that.
No, I just asked you where you're at on Christmas.
You know, like all Jews, I was probably at a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah, she was hilarious, I've got to say.
You remember that hearing was like stand-up comedy, but you know, Brett Kavanaugh should watch something there. He can take that light touch, which we saw some of tonight when he was announced. He has that warmth. He needs to get in touch with his inner Jerry Seinfeld and have a good time. But let me tell you, the admissions that we heard tonight, that he was an altar boy, his Jesuit training, that may come back to haunt him because they're going to try to use the Catholic thing against Kavanaugh. Now, your boss, Clarence Thomas, had similar problems in that they threw everything at Clarence Thomas, including the kitchen sink. He decided to respond with righteous indignation. This is another way to go. Watch.
This is a circus. It's a national disgrace. And from my standpoint, as a black American, as far as I'm concerned, it is a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks who in any way deign to think for themselves, to do for themselves, to have different ideas. And it is a message that unless you kowtow to an old order, this is what will happen to you.
Never have truer words been spoken by my former boss, Clarence Thomas. Brilliant jurist, has had an amazing career on the court. The ultimate revenge is life tenure. Raymond Arroyo, thank you.